Wrestling show, NorthJerseySports.com's original multimedia series, talking all things wrestling across North Jersey. This is Season 8, Episode 4, as we enter into Part 2 of the high school wrestling season, the dual meet season. I am Corey Doviak, being joined by my illustrious panel of North Jersey wrestling insiders, starting with the long time now co-host of this program. He is Kenny Sarajan. What's going on, Kenny?
Hey, it's good. We're excited. You got our new co-host, Ryan, has gotten us a great guest for tonight, and we're going to hear two great things from the Pope of Bergen County Wrestling, Donnie. We're going to hear about Doc Buchanan, and we're going to hear about who's number one. So if you're a wrestling fan, this is a great show for you.
Wait a minute, aren't I supposed to do all of that, set up the show and everything else? I mean, you're shot out of a cannon tonight, Kenny.
Because I'm excited. I can't control myself.
All right, so you want to save your mea culpa for later?
No, I'll do my mea culpa now.
Okay.
I also have to say something, because last week I did a very wrong thing, and I knew it,
Terrible.
And I should have done it. And we were having fun, because we have fun, and it's okay for us to make fun of other coaches, which we'll do, and sometimes reporters, and of course always each other. But when we were talking about a kid who's a really good kid, and I've known his dad for over 35 years, and I like them both, I made a joke about Gabe Robles, because Gabe had searched for the proper school for him, and he found it in Northern Highlands, and he finished second in the county, and he was all county defensive back, so everything's worked out for Gabe. And I made a little flippant comment, and it was wrong. So to my buddy, the Big Cat, and to Gabe, who's a nice kid, and his brother Pablo, I'm a little sorry for being a wise guy. All right, guys, take care. Let's go.
Okay.
I'm getting a little emotional.
For all of those, it's like the old Howard Stern, Jackie Martling apologizing to his wife. Anyway, we got other people on this show here tonight, and one of them is the head coach of the Pascack Valley Wrestling Program. He is Tommy Gallione. What's going on, Tommy? And what did you think of Kenny's apology?
It was a beautiful apology. I'm very proud of Kenny.
Heartfelt moment. Also joining us this evening.
They're nice people. Stop it.
I agree, Kenny, and I think you did a good job. You can't take a compliment.
Okay, all right.
Also joining us is the assistant coach of the North Bergen Wrestling Program. He is Ryan Burdett. What's going on, Ryan?
What's up, Corey? Excited to start the second half of the season here, the real dual match season.
The nitty-gritty. And the final member of the panel this evening is the aforementioned Pope of Bergen County Wrestling, Bergen Catholic assistant coach Donnie Spataro, who is playing hurt tonight following a bout with illness after a long week of travel. Donnie, how you feeling, pal?
Gentlemen, greetings from the West Coast. How are you?
Yeah, well, Donnie, we do want to talk to you mostly, certainly first and foremost, about what went on out there. You guys had a great tournament. Just want to set up the rest of the show and echo what Kenny said earlier. We're going to have a great interview that Ryan Burdett and I did with West Essex head coach Mike Markey. We're going to talk a little bit West Essex wrestling, but also his story is unbelievable. He is a liver transplant recipient, got sick in 2002, had a transplant in 2005, and is now 12 years later, and he's the head coach of a high school wrestling program. So you're going to want to stick around and hear about that. It's an inspirational story, and just a guy doing great things, fighting through adversity and everything else. We will get to that, but first we have to start with the Doc Buchanan. A couple of years ago when you first went out there, Donnie, we thought it was, the novelty with the cowboy hats that they give to the winners, and we thought it was so cool. Now you go out there, you come back with so many hats. It looks like the Ponderosa flying back, I'm sure, first class on the Bergen Catholic Express there, the charter bus that you guys, chartered to Clovis. Just talk about that experience again. You guys went out there, 11 in the quarterfinals, 9 in the semifinals, 6 in the final, or whatever it was, 6 in the finals, 3 champs. A great performance for the Crusaders.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable experience for us.
every time we go out there, we love it more and more. We're treated incredibly out there. The fans are some of the most knowledgeable wrestling fans in the United States. I probably had over 100 people throughout the 2 days come up to me and just wanted to ask questions and just tell us how great it was that we were out there, and please get more people from the East Coast to come out here and compete. It's just an incredible time, even for the kids. It's just something different, unbelievable competition, and I recommend it to anyone if they could ever get involved and get out there. But the competition was incredible. Many nationally ranked wrestlers were there, nationally ranked teams, and a little bit of different styles, a little bit of different officiating, but overall, it's just good old great competition.
Actually, you know what, Donnie? You are a co-host, but you're a guest tonight. So let's let everybody ask you some questions about it. Kenny, you want to go first?
Well, actually, the first question I'm going to ask you is what you just said, Donnie. Give our listeners a little rundown of what you felt is different about their style of wrestling and their style of officiating.
I'll tell you what. Sometimes North Jersey is accused, the officials, of calling stalling too quick, and it was incredible. They didn't care who you were, what team you were on. If the action stopped in the finals, just even for a little bit, the crowd just got into yelling stalling in 2 seconds. It was a sellout crowd of about 2,800 people. That was incredible. The finals itself is a huge production, light show. Just an incredible, almost like a big time college setup. But the wrestling is about the same. Maybe just a couple different things that you see here and there. Officiating a little bit different. Stall calls varied considerably. They announced at the coaches meeting before the tournament started that out of the top 10 officials in the state of California, 8 of them were there, and the rest consisted of the top 20 officials in the state. So this type of tournament attracts, the officiating itself is supposed to be some of the top officials in the whole state of California.
And also, I was Googling while you were out there, and it attracted a lot of media attention, too.
It's incredible. For people who don't know, Doc Buchanan, the person himself, who the tournament's named after, passed away, I think, about 2 years ago. And he was known as a big man. We met him the first time that we were out there. Great guy. He was an administrator, a teacher, well-known man out there, mentored to many people. He meant a lot to a lot of people, and he was known for wearing a cowboy hat all the time. So, thus, if you win the tournament, besides getting a nice medal, you also receive this incredible cowboy hat out there. And that's the big thing out there. Everyone strives to get that cowboy hat.
Yeah, it's crazy. Tommy, go ahead.
Danny, just give everybody a rundown. How many, how big is the tournament? How many teams, and majority California teams? Any other teams from outside of, that area? I mean, you guys travel across country. Anyone else, from out of the state of California?
Yeah, there was 122. There was 122 teams represented. There were a majority of the schools were from California, but there was Colorado was represented, and some of their kids were incredible. Utah and a couple other states. Majority again from California, from that area, but Colorado, Utah, and a couple other states.
Yeah.
So you did have a mix.
Good.
One other thing people might be wondering is, you look at your results, how you did. You have, talk about 152-pound weight class, right? You have Angelo and Estrella in both placed. How many extra guys did they allow you to enter into the tournament? You had 2 guys in that weight class. How many extra were they allowed? Is there a limit, or regarding that?
Well, we're lucky enough where they offered us 6 extra slots.
Really?
Because of, us coming out there and us being nationally ranked. I mean, other schools don't have that opportunity that we have. So it's not like everyone can bring extra kids. We were, it's just like the beast. Some teams are allowed a partial team. Some teams are allowed a full team. We were allowed a full team plus a couple extras, which they were very nice to offer that to us, so we can get some other kids out there for the experience.
Yeah.
So we were allowed. So we had the full team, plus we were allotted six extra spaces.
We should mention the champions. Gerard Angelo won at 152 pounds. Shane Griffith won at 160. Robert Howard won at 120. The second place finishers were Nick Kayow, second at 106. Carmen Ferranti, second at 132. And at 182 pounds, Jacob Cardenas. Is that right?
Correct.
Second at 182 pounds. So any of those guys surprise you, or, you know, they obviously had to be at the top of their game to win or come that close.
Yeah, I mean, Gerard 2 years ago won it at a lower weight at 120, so he was a returning Doc B champ. Carmen Ferrante was in the finals. The last time we were out there, we're also taking second. So he made the finals again and lost an unbelievable, one of the best matches of the night to the number 7 ranked wrestler in the nation, who also happened to be a Fargo national champ. Just incredible, exciting match. Came down to the last, almost really the last second. The crowd just went nuts over the match. I'm sorry, Robert Howard's match also incredible. Came down to overtime match also. Most of the finals were just, they were, sometimes you go to a tournament and the semifinals have the best matches, and sometimes the finals are a little bit of a letdown. Not at this tournament. The finals were just the most exciting I've ever seen. It was incredible atmosphere. I think the atmosphere had to do with a lot of the finals also, and how the crowd reacted. For it's everything's closed in for the finals, and you have 2,800 people right on top of the mat. They even put people around the mat to sit, young kids, youngsters, young wrestlers from the area that sit mat side all around. So place is incredible. People just wall to wall and just going nuts the entire finals.
Crazy.
And Donnie, real quick, I think it was Robert Howard's final. Was it his final when the lights went out and
something I've never seen before. I think you can go on Flow Wrestling and see it.
That's right, I saw it.
When the match was going on, something happened to the lights, and all the lights went off, and everyone, the majority, not even a majority, I'd say maybe 20% of the people in the audience in the stands thought quick enough and got their cell phones out and put the flashlight on their cell phones, and the place lit up. It was just such a feeling. I mean, it was pretty lit up with maybe only 20% of the people. If everyone did it, I think the whole gym could have lit up, and they could have continued the match just with the lighting, the flashlight from the cell phone. That's something I've never seen before. It's pretty unique.
Cool. Go ahead, Rye.
Coming back, obviously we know a lot about the Bergen Catholic guys, but coming back from California, who would be the one guy you would tell somebody about to say, you got to see this kid wrestle, or you're going to see this kid soon in college wrestle? Who were you most impressed by? A name that we don't know from out there.
Well, the heavyweight match was two of the top heavyweights in the nation going at it. And the kid Nellis from Clovis, his brother's actually the starter heavyweight at Penn State. He was in the finals, and I'm sorry, my mind slips me who he wrestled, but that also came down to overtime, and an incredible match. Two huge heavyweights who are the most athletic I've ever seen. It wasn't your typical heavyweight match, push and shove. These kids could actually do, wrestling moves that you would see in a much lighter weight. And it came down to the end. Nellis lost from Clovis, and it was his first high school loss ever.
Oh wow!
Taking that loss in the finals there.
We saw Nellis. Donnie, didn't we see Nellis wrestle at your place last year when they came out?
Yes, that was him. One of the top ranked heavyweights in the nation. At the time, he was 220 last year. At the time, this year he's at heavyweight.
All right.
Hey, Donnie, can you give one quick question for Donnie? I'm sorry, Corey. Donnie, can you give us a sense of, you guys went out there, and we're lucky because we're all on our group chat, but tell the people what you got out there. You went Wednesday. You forgot to take Screwy Louie Lazari with you, but you got out there Wednesday, and you trained, and talk about, in education nowadays, we talk a lot about getting outside the classroom. And I know a lot of people bitch and moan about, oh, look at what these athletic teams did. But talk about the experience outside the classroom that's an educational experience for the kids from BC. Because it was amazing what you were sending us.
Yeah, I mean, we left at, flight was about 10 in the morning. By the time we got out there, it was 5 o'clock California time. As soon as we got to the hotel, we settled in, got everyone together, and we had our first practice. There wasn't really much rest. We headed over. Clovis was nice enough to bring us over to one of their middle schools. And I sent pictures back to you guys of the middle school. I mean, the middle school wrestling room was incredible. It was gigantic. It was almost like a college wrestling room. So we practiced that night. Next day we wound up, we practiced over at Fresno State, where we took a tour of the campus, got to see that. Nice experience doing that. And then went back, and the tournament started. It was a 2-day tournament, Friday and Saturday. Just the kids had a great time. It was a good bonding experience for the team itself. And the parents, a lot of parents came out, which was very helpful. We needed extra rides besides the hotel shuttle going back and forth to the facilities. We stayed maybe about 4 or 5 miles outside from the high school. And, just the whole experience itself is incredible. If anyone could ever do it, swinging a team, and they get accepted to go out there, I would highly recommend it. So it's once in a lifetime.
How do they pick the teams? How do you get invited, Donnie?
Tell you, we reached out years ago. We reached out, and they were nice enough to let an outsider like us in. We were the first team ever 3 years ago as a team to outside of California to win the team championship. And you know what? They keep inviting us. I mean, it's you would think that maybe they wouldn't invite outsiders. They wouldn't want that again. But I'll tell you what, people, like I said, fans come up and keep asking us, are you guys coming out next year? Please come back. We love the way your kids wrestle. We love the way that your kids represent themselves, their sportsmanship, and so on, and how you represent your state. And we love your style of wrestling. So please, tell more people to come out. Like I said, you'd think that these people would be more territorial about their own tournament, and they're not. It's complete opposite. It's just, when you think of, it's mind-blowing when you think about it, to tell you the truth.
Donnie, and one of the other cool things you sent back was the list of the finals and the order in which they were conducted. I mean, we talked about it last week with the BCCA about how you should, can you save the guys, or should you have a highlighted match? That was something different that they did out there.
So what they do, we spoke about last time, how a lot of tournament directors make a mistake by trying to keep the what they feel is the marquee match to the last match of the night, and usually it still doesn't keep people's attention. Fans still leave. What they do here is they pick randomly out of any order. So you could start the first match at 285. The second match can be 132. The third match 106. For example, and so on. So it's nothing that I've ever been seen before, and it keeps everything fresh and exciting. I mean, you just go from one weight to another. You can jump so many weights and start the next. I mean, you used to, starting an order, even if the match started, say, the tournament at 132, then you expect 138 and so on. But not this. You actually had to look at what weights were next, what was coming up. And I think it kept the tournament finals real fresh and something different. It's very exciting to do that in that type of out-of-order way.
Yep. There's a lot of innovation going on, and it sounds like it's tried and tested out there, and it seems to be working great. I thought that was a really, really cool idea. All right. Doc Buchanan, Bergen Catholic champions of the 2007, 18, right? You were there after New Year's. So 2018 Correct. Doc Buchanan Tournament champions. Congratulations. But the grind continues here as you're staying home this weekend for another prestigious national tournament. Talk a little bit about who's number one.
Well, there's no rest for the wicked here. This weekend, we are sponsoring and we are holding an event by Flow Wrestling that is called Who's Number One. This year there'll be a couple less teams. Some teams pulled out. Some teams didn't want to be involved that were involved in the past. But you have the number one team in the nation will be here, Blair Academy. I mean, year in, year out, these guys are the number one team. Their wrestlers are incredible. It's just an incredible, historic program. You also have, which is unique, one of the teams, Buchanan. They were recently ranked second in the nation a couple weeks ago. They dropped down a couple. They've had some injuries. They didn't win a tournament, I guess, that was expected, so they dropped down somewhat in the rankings, but they're real tough. They have some real big hammers. They were in the tournament with us at the Doc Buchanan, and this time they'll be flying out here. As a matter of fact, I think they'll be in tomorrow, which is Wednesday, and they will be wrestling Del Barton and St. Peter's on Thursday night before they wrestle at Who's Number One. And also you have one of the top teams in the nation. They were in the top 5 last year. They're called Lake Highland Prep. They are from Florida. So you have Blair Academy, you have Buchanan High School from California, you have Lake Highland Prep from Florida, and you have Bergen Catholic. So, I mean, pretty much well represented from around the U.S.
What's the format? What's the format going to be on Saturday? If people want to come and watch, what time and who's going to wrestle who, and how does it go?
Sure. It's like a tri-meet. So the first session's at 11 a.m. You'll see Lake Highland Prep versus Blair, and we'll be wrestling Buchanan the first match. Second match is at 1 p.m. And again, these are just approximate times. You know how like quads and tries meet is as soon as one match is over and the other team's ready, you just roll into it. So the times really that we have set are 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 3 p.m. And in the last session, you'll have us wrestling Blair Academy. So you got 11, 1, and 3. And again, like I said, just get there. Don't count on those times because if teams are ready to roll, we'll start even earlier than what those times say.
Anybody else for Donnie, for our exclusive guest this week on the wrestling show, Donnie Spataro? Tommy?
No, I think did a great job highlighting what's coming up this weekend.
Ryan?
Hey, what happens if, you guys knock off, say, Blair, but Lake Highland Prep knocks you guys off, and Blair beats them, and you got 3 teams at 2-1. Nobody's number one?
That's up to that's very that's a good observation there, Ryan, especially for a North Bergen teacher. So
born in Bergen County.
That would be up to Flow Wrestling and the other wrestling publications to figure that one out. Who's number one?
Gotcha.
I
got like a bracket.
I can see it next week. Donnie Spataro having to do a Kenny Sarajan style apology to the North Bergen School District.
He ain't ever doing that.
I was born there. I was born in North Bergen, so I can have my say.
Yes.
I got a quick question, Donnie. Does Blair has to wrestle as a high school team, right? Their prep kids can't wrestle.
Correct. No postgraduates are allowed to wrestle. It's just all high school kids. Same thing, high school rules.
All right. Interesting stuff there with our guest this evening, Donnie Spataro. And now let's move on to a guy that we have never heard from before in our 8 seasons of doing the wrestling show. But you're going to want to stick around and listen. It's an interview that Ryan Burdett and I did with West Essex head coach Mike Markey. As I mentioned at the top of the show, a liver transplant recipient who's still going strong in the wrestling room at West Essex. So here is that interview from earlier this evening. Well, we have pared down the panel for this interview that I'm very much looking forward to on this edition of the wrestling show. As it is just myself and Ryan Burdett here welcoming in our guest for the evening. He is West Essex head coach Mike Markey. Mike, thanks for joining us here on the wrestling show.
Guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're excited about it. And, in doing show prep, not me, the great Ryan Burdett Ryan, quotations, Kyle Burdett, doing the research for this show, we found that there's a lot of interesting information. We're going to start on the wrestling front here. Let's talk, and then we're going to get into really what is an amazing story of things that you've gone through to be in the position that you're in right now. But let's just start first with the easy stuff. Let's talk a little West Essex wrestling here. Give us a rundown of the nights as we're just about to really kick off the meat of the dual meet season.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely in about to start knocking down dual meets, and we're a pretty young team. We fill 14 weight classes, which is really nice, for us right now. But we only have 2 seniors on the team. We got a nice freshman class coming in, and somehow we won our first 2 tournaments. We won our first tournament at Mawa, and then surprising one at Roselle Park. We just wrestled this past weekend in a quad and got it handed to us a little bit. So we had some high highs this season and just coming off a low. So we're going to find our middle soon.
Who was in that quad?
North Hunterdon, Raritan, and Wayne Valley.
All right, so there's some good boys in there. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was impressed with them.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Complete your thought.
Yeah, no. Looking at West Essex, when we were at the Mawa tournament, it kind of reminded me of what Mike just talked about, and that was they've had some highs already of winning some tournaments, and they've had some lows of the had some trouble this weekend in the dual meets and the quad. But what you noticed about them is, one, he just brought up they're very young. They have a bunch of juniors in the lineup, some talented freshmen. And what I was laughing about that day at the tournament is every time I turned around, every weight class, it looked like they had the same type of wrestler. They're aggressive on their feet. They were tough on top. They were getting out on bottom. You weren't running to tell anybody about somebody on their team, some beast, but there was nobody there that you could pinpoint as a whole either. And which is very scary going into the dual meet season when you got to wrestle somebody like that. That's the kind of team you want to be. And, we've at North Bergen, we've wrestled against Mike for, a number of years until, the Region 4 and all the new region districts kind of made that fall apart a little bit. But he looks like he's got a team that's, on the cusp right now. I'm sure they're not going to accomplish everything that he wants to this year, but it's one of those teams that, you should start looking, and next season is where it's at for them as they improve this season and go into next season with a lot more experience, and who knows what they have coming up from the rec. So it was good to see that in Mawa.
Mike, what was the state of the West Essex program when you took it over? I mean, forgive me, I'm Bergen County centric and know little, so give us a little rundown.
Well, this is actually my first year as head coach, so this season is my first season as head coach. All right, how were they last year? Well, me and Greg Ruggiero. Greg Ruggiero is now my assistant, and he's been the head coach of West Essex now since 2007, and that's kind of when we got in this together, him as the head coach and me as the assistant, and now we flip-flop roles. So back when he started, there's only 19 guys on the team. My first year as an assistant coach. And out of the gate, we built pretty fast. Back then, that was when, Anthony Parati was with us. He's on the coaching staff now. And by like 2011, we won a couple section titles, a couple district titles. We actually wrestled in the group finals then. And, all the way through like 2014, I think we were very tough. And then we had a little gap where we weren't as tough. We weren't winning as many championships. We did win our county in 2015. But it's been, there has been a trend where a lot of our best rec guys are going to private schools. So we'd like to start to keep them now. But Greg handed me over the program last year in great condition and very young. And he's still with me. He's like my right-hand man now. Same role that I was in with him for a number of years. So, I think what Ryan said is right on the money. We're going after it this year, but I think, truthfully speaking, that we're building, for the future.
Yeah. All right. Ryan, you want to go next? Take us through some of this story here. I mean, it's crazy. I'm reading the notes now, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I was Googling you just before, so we'd have a couple things ready, and you gave me some great information on the email. And when I was going through, as you mentioned, Mike was with the Caldwell High School. He had 108 wins and only 16 losses in his 4 years there. As a senior, he finished fourth in the state. 4-time district finalist, 2-time champ, 4-time county finalist, 2-time champ. But he mentioned, this was a typical coach line, football was his first love. So, he was able to play football and wrestle in college. And, I think that goes for a lot of coaches, and a lot of coaches in wrestling. They have something else that they love, and, wrestling just sucks them in. But, he said at TCNJ, he had to stop playing football, and Mike mentioned having, a liver disease. And when I went to look it up, and, I just read the article only within the last hour, about Walter Payton having the same disease. So, Mike, could you tell us a little about what you went through, what the actual disease is, and how you've gotten past it to be a successful coach, teacher, and I believe you're a father now too?
No, not yet. I have a puppy.
Sorry. Maybe you're getting married. Maybe you're getting married. You're married? Okay.
That's for another show. I was engaged at one point.
Oh, Jesus.
No, listen.
Sorry.
No, it's all good, man. I'm an open book. And obviously, if you Google me, that article comes up. That was written a couple years back, and I think Mike Lamberti wrote it, and he did a great job. The disease is a mouthful. It's called primary sclerosing cholangitis, and nobody's ever heard of it, so I like to say that Walter Payton had it. I mean, he did, but he's famous, so that puts at least some recognition for the disease.
Yeah, kids these days, I wonder even if they recognize that name. But still, good.
Yeah, I have to be careful of that. I have to be careful of that, too. I date myself often.
Right, we're all like, yeah, Walter Payton, of course,
Right.
1986.
That's where my young assistants come in handy. They can keep me in check on, what's current.
Right.
But, so, I mean, listen, out of high school and into college, I was in really good health. I was, obviously I was an athlete and feeling good about that, but I was having symptoms that, came on slowly, towards the end of high school, but none that I, read too much into. And then, towards the end of my freshman year of college, it started to get more and more. I started to get real lethargic. In wrestling, we lose weight, and I was getting down to weight, and then it kept going down. So I started to have some red flags. It started to get harder to get out of bed. Ended up going home, getting a blood test, and I started feeling a little bit better after that. Didn't think much of it. Got a phone call. You got to come home. We got to go to a specialist. And then from there, man, it was a whirlwind, of years of tests and all these things after I got diagnosed. Because primary sclerosing cholangitis is so rare, we'll call it PSC, that there's really no treatment or cure for it yet. The only option is if you're able to receive a liver transplant. So at the time, it was definitely perspective changing, I guess is the best way.
What year are we talking about?
2002.
Okay.
Was when I was diagnosed. And then, so the way the organ transplant list works is that, at least for the liver, it's different for kidneys, it's different, depending on what you need, is that as you get sicker, you get closer to the top. So the sicker you are, the better chance, you have of receiving, a donor organ. So, I knew that I was going to get sicker and sicker before I was going to be able to be transplanted. And that happened. And by 2005, I was in pretty bad shape. And I was, super fortunate. I did receive that call eventually. And, 12 hours of surgery later, I came out the other end. I mean, the story beyond that is, I finished with 9 surgeries and a lot of complications, but we don't have the time for that, I'm sure. And the note is I'm here, I'm doing what I love. I think if you saw me, I'm in good shape. I take care of myself. I've bounced back. And they told me I wouldn't wrestle again. I'm not grinding in the room anymore, but I was for a while. And, I'm grateful for that for sure.
How old are you now?
I'm 35, about to turn 36 in February.
That's great. Go ahead, Ray. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It makes me feel better. I'm 38 in March, but
I'm 45. You two young bucks over there.
Feel great, then, Corey. I feel great.
Yes.
That's the thing. I think that I only know Mike from wrestling, And, you know, just coaching against them, you know, we haven't even spoken that much in person. It's really just, you know, on a match day or a quad day. I think that was the most surprising thing, or stunning even, when I read this article, because I know he's in good shape. And just to read that article and to see all you went through, and to be able to come out on this end, and not just come out on this end, but to come out healthy and doing what you're doing, is pretty incredible. And like I said, I've only read it in the last hour. So I'm still a little shocked reading it here. But so when you went to school, so that was 2002. When would you say, I don't know, in the clear? How many years was that before you were in the clear?
So, in the clear, I mean, I just had surgery last December and a complete abdominal reconstruction because the area had been open so many times, and they had to rebuild my abdomen once again in 2000, and right after that article was written, actually, because I was actually still pretty sick then. And the mesh they used ended up being no good. My body, like, basically digested it, and so I had this gigantic hernia that was rebuilt last December. So I was out of commission for a little bit last wrestling season, and then I bounced back towards the end, and you know, I haven't looked back since. But so I've had, like, years in between. The main problem was not, after the transplant, was not anything really disease-related. It was that my hepatic artery ruptured after the transplant, and the liver went without blood supply for, like, a pretty long period of time. It dried out the bile ducts around it, and then it was, like, mayhem trying to find a doctor that could rewire me, basically, is what they did. And so that took years. I would say the worst of it was over in 2013. So, you know, a few little touch-ups since then, but
so from 05 to 13.
02.
02 to 13. That's crazy. Yeah. So I guess the question is, you know, to relate it back to wrestling, like, how does this shape the way you teach wrestling? How does it shape the way you interact with your guys? How does it shape your outlook and the outlook that you know, give your team, the speeches, everything else? I mean, it's the obvious, you know, you're having a bad day in the wrestling room. The obvious thing is, hey, it could be worse. Is it, you know, how do you impart everything you've learned through this? Because it's got to be, you know, I can't even imagine, you know, for myself or for one of my kids or something like that. So it's got to be a huge part of who you are now. And how does that translate itself into coaching the sport of wrestling?
Well, it is a huge part of who I am now. But believe it or not, I think when it comes to coaching wrestling, it's always there in who I am, but it's separate. Like, I bet there's guys on my team now who don't know.
Really?
You know, see, I'm very big on mindset. I am very big on, you know, how you show up, body language, you know, and a big reason that I'm very big on that is because, you know, listen, I'm a wrestler. I've been wrestling since I was in second grade. I love this sport. Love it. And I have no doubt that wrestling, and I think most people who have wrestled will say this, you know, prepared me for what I went through. You know, and there were days where, of course, I was feeling sorry for myself, and there were days where I was, like, not feeling very tough. But like, I look at how I was able to get through that physically, and I think wrestling has a lot to do with that. And then I started to see that, like, the better days I would have were because I was not, you know, sitting in it feeling sorry for myself. I was getting up and going and walking, you know, and then building up to doing more and more and more, and then that would get the momentum going mentally as well as physically. So I bring that, you know, into the room a lot. But, you know, I tell my guys all the time, and you know, if they're making the commitment that they're making, wrestling's important, but at the end of the day, it's just wrestling, and it's going to prepare you for something much bigger.
Well, I'm going to
at
tell
least
you this.
It did for me.
We're taping this show right now, so I can't do it right now, but I have two daughters. And when I post this show tomorrow on NorthJerseySports.com, I'm going to make sure both of them listen, because one's in college, one's in high school, and, you know, sometimes you have some bad days. And I'm going to say, you know what? Listen to this guy, because it really is inspiring that you just went on, you picked up the pieces and you went on about your life. I mean, it really is an inspiring story. Go ahead, Ryan. You got something else?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a pretty incredible story. To lead out of that and go back to some wrestling stuff, so we don't ruin Mike's night.
Yeah, really. Let's talk to the guy. He loves wrestling. Wrestling got him through, and we're going back to the old days. So yes, take us back.
But I will say this though. I will say this, and sorry to cut you off. I think this is important to mention because I have some of the old wrestlers that I coached on my coaching staff right now. And at that time, like before I started coaching wrestling, in 2008, those years before that were tough, and it was coming back to wrestling and my wrestlers who were kind of able to take me out of sitting in what I was going through. So like, as much as like I'm coaching these guys and have been through the years, they have had a huge part of taking me out of, getting me into a better mindset. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and listen, that's the great thing about teaching and coaching and doing what I do, where you're around youth, which is also inspiring, So as much as you're helping them, I'm sure they're helping you get through a lot of the stuff. Okay, Rye, now back to wrestling.
Awesome. You feel responsibility to somebody else, so it forces you to give up on your own, your own faults or your own what's going on in your life. So it's good.
Yep.
I was just curious as the head coach, is there anything, I know you have Greg with you as an assistant, so I'm sure the room is very, very similar. And you guys always had good stuff going on over there. Is there anything now that you on a daily basis go through as a head coach compared to an assistant that you either didn't, foresee coming or that you have changed from being an assistant to a head that you'd like to talk about?
I think the biggest difference is now I have to walk around with a checklist where I really didn't used to do that before. Like, and not only do I have to walk around with a checklist, like, do I have the weigh-in sheet? Do I have my folder? Do I have my skin? Like, I mean, I go down the rundown. Does everybody have their shoes and headgear? I still have Greg there to be like, did you remember to tell him this? It's like, no, but thank you. So there's a lot of checklists around everything I do now. But besides that, I mean, the way the staff is now, it's like all hands on deck, and because Greg is still there and I'm still there, it's not much different, and I have guys who went through the program now coaching with me. So absolutely. I guess, if I could say, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the organization part of it is the biggest change.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely.
How about Anthony Perotti? He's in your wrestling room as well?
Yes. He's my assistant now. Good.
For people who don't know, he's a two-time All-American from Rutgers. That's a coup to get him in a high school wrestling room so soon after his college career ended. I mean, what's that like?
I mean, how spoiled am I?
Yeah, he's killing people in the wrestling room, right?
It's my first year as a head coach, and I get undefeated state champion, two-time Division I All-American on my staff. I mean, Anthony still lives the part. I mean, you talk about me being an example, having him in the room. He is the ultimate competitor, and his mindset and everything else. He just brings a ton of energy to the room and something for the kids to. It certainly attracts them to what he's doing.
Your kids probably have a better chance of knowing who Anthony Perotti is than Walter Payton.
Oh, absolutely. Especially since he's homegrown.
So have you talked about expectations, hopes, goals with this team this year? I mean, what would make you happy?
No, we always talk about setting goals. And I've been saying this since my very first year coaching. We're going to go through this process. And although, winning those two tournaments during the year were nice, we never really talked about them as our goals. It's always, we want to wrestle through sections, districts, regions, and states. And I mean, that's where we kind of evaluate the work we've put in through the season, where we end up. And then after that, we'll reevaluate. And I don't think I have we need this many champs or we need this many medals or it needs to look like this. I love good wrestling and I want to see good wrestling on our team. We should be in shape. We should be putting pressure on people. And like I said, we're young, and not only are we young, we really don't have a ton of experience. I mean, I think an interesting stat about us is, 5 of our starters have 2 years or less experience, ever. So, keeping the match in positions that we know and out of positions we don't is really important for a lot of my guys. So it's a daily, it's a daily effort to do that. And at the end of the season, if we just keep progressing, if we keep moving forward, that probably sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. This team, we just need to, keep progressing because they're all coming back.
Let me guess, you take it one match at a time.
Yeah. Even less than that. Like, I think we're taking it one practice at a time. But I mean, go ahead.
So much we've talked about it over and over on the show over the years and even already over the season. I mean, the state of wrestling now, where I think, just as an outside observer, the top echelon of wrestler in New Jersey has never been better. I mean, there's more of them. They're going on to make an impact on the national level more often than used to happen. I think what's missing is that kid, and the ones you're talking about, the ones who's just 2 years on the mat, you grab them out of the hallway and say, I can make a 160-pounder out of you. Your thoughts on the state of wrestling compared to when you were there and the state of the game now, where, a lot of places have tough times filling weight classes and getting kids out to just be a good teammate, let alone, try to win a district or something like that. How do you see the state of the game?
Sure. Now I love this question because I've looked at it long and hard. I think about this all the time. And there's a few fossils around that would love to say that, the top echelon of guys right now, I know plenty of guys that would back in the day. And listen, there's been some great wrestlers in New Jersey and we've seen it, but I would say confidently that the top guys now are better than ever. And I've seen some impressive kids, over the last couple of years, coming out of New Jersey, and I think that's outstanding. I mean, I think they're making commitments at a young age right now, and they have avenues to wrestle all over the country where maybe we didn't have that exposure back then. So you are seeing that like top echelon of kids being very hard to beat. And I mean, I think it's understood that the middle's dropped out a bit because that kid who would play football and baseball and maybe lacrosse, like, they've put such a commitment into either of those sports that, to come out for the wrestling team and try to learn, the learning curve is hard won because you're getting your butt kicked every week, and it's hard to keep that kid into it.
Swinging and missing at a curveball. It's getting your ribs broken on a throw.
Right. And so, like, I mentioned in the beginning that, we filled 14 weight classes, and that's big because it can be challenging to motivate somebody to stay out through all the sport is extremely unforgiving, and the margin of error is small. And even when you have a new guy out there and he's wrestling great for 4.5 minutes and then makes like a crucial mistake, it's tough to come back from that. Like, almost had it, so you got to keep them motivated. And there's no easy way to do it, right? Wrestling practice has to be wrestling practice. It's hard, So I think incorporating, fitness into it, a lot of kids, like, understanding the benefits of changing their body, building the mental toughness, keeping them into it. So, like you said, I think the middle has dropped out. I think we have a lot of weight classes. With the new weight classes, all those big weights, they're harder to fill also. So they do kind of get filled with that new guy, and then he doesn't stay around too long once his record gets to, like, 0-11. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
hard to convince him that 11-3 was a good job out there tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, listen, Ryan, you got anything else?
No, that was great. It's good to have you on, Mike. I'm happy you came on.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you, thinking of me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to. We've been doing the show for 8 years now. My only regret is that we haven't had you on long before this, but we'll be checking back in with you, and not just because of your story, but because of your team, and we want to expand it, expand the footprint of the wrestling show a little bit. So Ryan got you on. That was a great job by him. I am happy to have met you here tonight. I am inspired by your story, and I wish you nothing but continued success and good luck.
Oh, thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure, and we're going to be good. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
And what else needs to be said? That's it for this week. We'll see you next time on The Wrestling Show.
Follow the leader.